Welcome to the Trump Tyranny Tracker back on track on this Tuesday. It's nice to have Olga here with us again. Hi, Olga. How was your time off or your day of rest, I should say, not even a time off? How was it?
It was good. It's desperately needed. And honestly, to tell you the truth, which I want to write about, it's a mental health month. And we are dealing with so much, and we don't realize how much we're dealing with. Everybody needs to figure out a way to pace yourself and take the time needed because it really, my brain shut off. I just really, unless my house would have exploded, I did not want to know nothing over the past few
Yeah.
days. And it
Well, you
just
look
tells
great.
you how much we need this time to ourselves, and we could do both.
Everyone is going through so much stress right now. This is a very incredibly stressful time, no matter what role you're playing with. You're, doing what we do or what people just as an ordinary citizen. It's just a very, very stressful time. So anything you can do to give yourself a mental health break is so important, and taking time to yourself and the things that matter to you. Sometimes it gives you a better perspective on where we're at.
Absolutely.
And you look really relaxed and energetic. Yeah.
You.
Yeah. I was about to say you look really energized. So that's good. Welcome back. We were just talking before we got on the air, and it's worth just spending some time on it. The talks tomorrow happening in Turkey, in Istanbul, supposedly direct talks between Putin and maybe Zelensky, but it could be definitely Russia versus Ukraine across the table with Erdogan mediating. Maybe Trump will show up. We don't know. But you were just saying this is all theater, and that there's a couple of red lines that people have to understand are very important. What did you mean by that?
Well, as American media continues to carry on, like, oh my God, there's a ceasefire plan, there are negotiations, whatever. First of all, this whole negotiation is a sham plan. But there have been, actual crimes that Russia has carried out on a mass scale. One is genocide. Russia has kidnapped Ukrainians have identified 21,000 children. Okay, 21,000 that Russia has kidnapped. And they didn't just kidnap these children. They kidnap them, they take them to Russia, torture them, beat them, and basically erase their Ukrainian identity. They're not allowed to speak Ukrainian. They cannot, say the Ukrainian national anthem, nothing. They erase it, indoctrinate them to be Russians, and then hand them off to Russian families, frankly, these days as gifts to people who lost their own children in this genocidal war. The civil society, for them, this is a very big sticking point. I worked on war crimes in Russia that Russia's committing against Ukraine, both in mass war crimes and in genocide and in the destruction of, cultural institutions and the kidnapping of kids. This is what Putin, which was unprecedented at the time, that a sitting leader, there was an arrest warrant issued. And for civil society, the main thing is that these children are returned. So whatever is decided by whomever, it doesn't matter whether it's Europe or, Trump or Zelensky, even with Zelensky, people need to understand Ukraine runs in a very different way. It's not like United States or Europe where everyone, looks up to the president as the leader. There, the civil society is who leads the country, and they give, the president enough room to operate. But once there's betrayal, that follows a revolution. We saw this during Maidan in 2014 when Yanukovych betrayed Ukraine by siding and moving the country from EU, which was embedded in the constitution, to um, towards Russia. And I mean, civil society in a minute started coming out in protest, staying in protest every single day and night for 4 months until Yanukovych fled the country to Russia. We saw this during the Orange Revolution. So all these theatrics, I mean, they are first of all, this is a very long war with Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia. We have to go back. Stalin killed millions in a genocide, millions of Ukrainians. This is a centuries old war between the two countries. And there are certain things, you're not going to sit and discuss. No, Ukrainians, maybe they'll temporarily cease territory, but it's not about the territory. Each town has Ukrainians who are living in fear, held in hostage, have to walk around. They cannot say anything because they will be either tortured, disappeared, or murdered.
Mm.
Each town that is under Russian occupation, they are grabbing Ukrainian men, which is another war crime, and forcing them to go to the front line to kill fellow Ukrainians. So, I mean, these are issues that cannot be resolved in an Istanbul meeting. These are issues that are not going to be resolved with Witkoff running to Moscow and trying to first of all, I think the whole Moscow thing is business deals had nothing to do with Ukraine, but these things can't be resolved like this. I mean, there are very you know um uh, like demands that need to be met, and Russia itself claimed that they took 700,000 children. Can you imagine someone walking into America and taking 700,000 children
It's
that have
impossible to imagine. Yeah.
families,
Yeah.
and kidnapping them to another country?
So what you're saying is this is really not about borders. This is not about, ceding territory. It's about the human factor of what's happened to people who live in Ukraine or former Ukraine. That's now being some of the areas have been occupied by the Russia. What you're saying is that it's about the human factor. It's about these kids. It's about the people living in fear. And that's stuff that can't be negotiated over a negotiating table. That's stuff that's got to be, there's got to be real proof. Now, some of these children, and you've worked so closely on this for many, many years, um, have been taken for a long time. You said that maybe it could be,
2014, after
wow,
Russia
10 years
illegally
longer.
annexed Crimea, they started kidnapping Ukrainian children. Donbass, they were kidnapping Ukrainian children. Some were able to escape and came back. But again, this is, I mean, an extremely traumatic thing that has happened. Everyone has seen in Ukraine what happens under Russian occupied territory since 2014, while Germany, Merkel, and other European leaders were busy, negotiating the Nord Stream pipeline and business deals. Russia was setting up concentration camps in Crimea,
Mm.
in Donbass. I mean, there were war crimes happening at the time, and this is something that you cannot erase. And no one in Ukraine is going to, be okay with a ceasefire or a deal that benefits Russia and does not, in the long term, get Ukrainian land back to rescue the Ukrainian people trapped inside. I mean, this is just common sense. If someone, breaks into your house, kills and rapes your wife and children, leaves a few children behind, you're not going to be like, oh, never mind them, let me just start and continue with a new life. It's common sense.
Common
People
sense.
are going to fight for, freeing these people, and that's it. And Russia is an aggressor. I mean, and this is another thing that eventually they will, if we ever get the world back to somewhat normal,
Mm.
that they will be charged with genocide. Russia flaunts it. There are thousands of statements between top senior Russian officials, that they want to eliminate Ukrainians. Until every
Mm.
Ukrainian is eliminated, they will not stop. And then you have to factor in, that Trump is like, oh, let them have these 5 regions, whatever. These regions are turned into military bases.
Mm.
Crimea was turned into a military base from 2014, as Russia continued preparing to launch a full-scale invasion. And they moved ballistic missiles there, and they moved, Air Force Base and everything else. So, I mean, it's not a simple thing as people make it. Oh, Thursday, maybe Trump will show up. Oh, maybe, Zelensky and Putin is buying time. Putin cannot stop this war. His economy right now will
Mm.
collapse if it shifts off of a war economy. He needs to continue this war. So he'll continue stalling, dangling Trump and stalling and saying, yeah, no problem. Yes, we'll have a ceasefire. We'll have. In the meantime, you know, with the ceasefire nonsense again, Russia sent over 100 drones across
Mhm.
Ukrainian cities, killing more Ukrainians yesterday. So there's your
Yeah, I mean,
ceasefire.
certainly the demand that Zelensky had was that there be a ceasefire from yesterday. That obviously didn't happen. There won't be a ceasefire by tomorrow. And so when the meeting happens, they'll be still fighting, and maybe they can sit down and agree
And,
on a ceasefire, but unlikely.
and even the whole premise of how the Western media discusses it, negotiations. What fucking negotiations? Russia illegally came over a border. They can easily, they want to end the war. Putin can order it right now and say, you know what? All my troops come back home, cross over the border. What negotiations? What are we negotiating? Like the whole premise, it infuriates me because there's nothing to negotiate. This is
Yeah,
not a dispute over land. This is army illegally entering another sovereign country and seizing territory.
yeah. In
There's
fact, the starting point of the negotiations already gives Russia something that has not been thought of as being acceptable for decades, which is, seizing any land from a sovereign country. It's just not acceptable
no,
around the
no,
world.
and
And
Russia,
and here they are, they're negotiating over this thing like it's possible when really it shouldn't be. There's no standard base for this kind of negotiation at all. Love your analysis. Thank you for sharing that. And also the idea that of the people that are trapped psychologically and with their rights being taken away inside Ukraine. It's so important to remember that there are people, it's not just geography. There are people being trapped
there are people.
in these areas that are being forced to live under the Russian dictatorship, and under authoritarian rule that is basically, as you point out, a military base now.
And people who are still resisting, who are
Hmm.
still quietly going and putting Ukrainian symbols on bus stops inside territory
Wow.
to prove that they are Ukrainian. No matter how many guns are pointed to their head, they are still Ukrainian. This is still their home. This is still their land.
Such a tragic circumstance. And we'll see what happens Thursday. Let's move on to some of the stories on the tracker today, because others will take up the whole time to do that. Let's begin with the Trump administration continuing its financial assault on Harvard University. So they've announced an additional $450 million in grant cuts to Harvard University, deepening a financial crisis that now totals $2.65 billion. It's withheld in federal funding. This follows last month. It was $2.2 billion, I think they froze. The administration's Joint Task Force for Combating Anti-Semitism, such a euphemism, really, that is, accused Harvard of failing to address pervasive race discrimination and anti-Semitic harassment.
Mhm.
What do you think's going on here? What's really happening?
The white nationalists that Trump appeases to his base are now demanding, that white people are the ones who need to have focus. And they're basically, weaponizing the civil rights law that will rightfully try to elevate, minority groups across America and give them the same opportunities others have. They're weaponizing it
Hmm,
to now towards that it's the white people who are being discriminated. Give me a
crazy.
break. White people are not being discriminated. And this goes back to two bigger points. One, that Trump is, basically wants to take over universities. Universities are key for any dictator. And by putting these things now, I mean, for the federal government to come into universities, tell them who they should hire, how many they should hire. I mean, are they the HR for now Harvard, and eventually this will spread to Columbia and whatnot? And two, I mean, this whole DEI thing, beside the fact of how reprehensible it is, this is a way to polarize the country. This is a way to split people up by race, by sex, by gender, by, their sexual orientation. This is what this is about. This is to keep us busy while they're centralizing the surveillance system, getting ready to silence us, and we're occupied with this. This is what this is. And at the same time, he's appeasing to his white nationalist base. And you saw the same thing as Trump is, removing the status of Afghanis who fought alongside Americans. They
Crazy.
go back, they will be beheaded. This
Yeah.
is what's going to happen to them. 9,000 plus who are here on temporary status. worked with our military, sacrificing their own safety and their family's safety. They go back, they will be beheaded, they will be killed. And the fact that he, at the same day, removed the status from them, and then they are doing propaganda of, white South Africans
Mm.
coming in here over race. This is the same thing that's happening with Harvard, that it's the white people who are
It,
being discriminated against.
it really is the sort of the mask off moment for this administration, because their racism is now so obvious. It's so clear to see, especially with the South African situation, where they're just bringing people who are, just racist. That's their qualification, is
I
being
know.
white and being racist. Like, it's not. There is none of this genocide that's going on there. None of that's really happening. Whites are still predominantly the most powerful grouping in South Africa. So there's no discrimination against them. They're only 8% of the population, yet they have 60 to 80% of the outputs in terms of the economy. So it's not true that there's any genocide against these South Africans. And then they're being forced, not being forced, they're giving these people green cards to come live here. And their only qualification is that they're whites and that they're probably racist. They'll come and tell us a story about maybe how they were hurt, maybe victims of crime or whatever. But really, the reality of it is, everybody's a victim of crime in South Africa. It's a very crime-ridden place. It has nothing to do with the color of your skin.
Oh, I can say, I mean, I remember when Ukrainians had to escape bombs and missiles and drones falling on their head. I mean, when they were coming here and into Poland and across Europe, they were shell shocked. I mean, shell shocked. They weren't coming with fucking, suitcases rolling through. Like so many suitcases. And I'm looking at these videos. I'm like, my God, what kind of refugees are these? Like they
Mm,
have so many and they're all happy and waving and whatnot. This is not the look of people who are escaping, persecution or, and I've seen
yeah.
enough of it. I've dealt with Syrians who've escaped Assad's regime. I've dealt with Ukrainians. I've dealt with Russians who've escaped Putin's regime. They are shell shocked. You could see by the face. They're not coming in, like all happy and filming a commercial.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they basically were modeling for the cameras there yesterday. It was just embarrassing for the United States to be accepting them, but it's so horrific to be doing it on the same day as the Afghan refugees, and they're being revoked. I mean, it's such a tragedy, and I wonder still where Ukrainian refugees are going to land up with in the future. I mean, who knows?
They'll be kicked
Certainly,
out soon. Don't worry.
Trump's raised this before. The other really fascinating story from the Trump Tyranny Tracker today is the hostile real takeover of the Library of Congress. The Library of Congress has always been, as it says, the Library of Congress. It belongs to the legislative branch, but it's where the archives of America are kept. They do a meticulous, amazing job, and they help the members of Congress do their research. They help journalists do their research. They're very, very detail-oriented, very, very good group of people that work over there, obviously. And now Todd Blanche, who's the president's former lawyer,
Mm,
is
yeah.
who Donald Trump wants to choose as the Librarian of Congress. Now, it's not clear yet how he can do that. He is, of course, entitled to appoint anyone he wants, but because it is a congressional library, there are questions about whether he can really do this and whether this is a constitutional crisis. What's going on there? Because there was a standoff yesterday.
Yeah, so apparently, like in Russia, everyone here wears several hats. I mean, we have Marco Rubio as the Secretary of State, and what else is he now? National Security
Security advisor.
Advisor.
Yeah, a
And
couple of
he
others.
also had, yeah, he had a few more roles. Todd Blanche is a high-level Department of Justice official, Trump's former lawyer, and now head of the Library of Congress. It's very fascinating. This is where resistance, worked temporarily. So Todd Blanche got appointed to this position after Trump just fired two other people. He got appointed to this, and he selected two people to go there, to send over for positions there. And the staff literally locked them out. And they and they said that, the executive branch has absolutely no control or right over the Library of Congress. And they literally locked them out. I mean, in Yesterday there was like a standstill and Capitol Police had to be sent
Good for
over.
them.
They,
Good for them.
they refused to let them in. And this is
Mm,
exactly what you need to do with this
yeah.
ridiculous regime because they, you know, send Musk and, and other, like, I mean, people with no insignia who are breaking into buildings. So here, they took a stand. And so far, 24 hours, it's still holding. There's been no military,
Yeah.
driving through.
Now, Tom
But this
Blanche is not
just
a
shows you what they want,
yeah, but he's
you
not a
know?
librarian. He's a lawyer, right? I mean, he doesn't have the skill set necessarily. And wasn't the person who was removed from this job involved in one of those cases against Donald Trump? The I think it was the documents case in Mar-a-Lago, that the librarian who was removed, she testified or at least provided some evidence in that case.
And
It,
someone, one of them who was just, there were two people who were removed last
yeah.
week. One of them provided a report basically discussing some dangers, and that's why she was silenced. So, I mean, this regime is ridiculous. And this, it just, for me, it showed two things. One, that they continue their power grab, even, in instances where they have no legal authority, and two, that resistance still works even if you have to lock the door,
Hey,
lock them out and
sometimes
tell them go away.
Sometimes I wish we could do that with the entire administration. Maybe one day we will. Um,
Yeah,
Elon Musk is currently in Saudi Arabia with Donald Trump on this
of course,
mission. Yeah, of course he is. Just the
of
money is.
course.
Um, but he's got other conflicts of interest happening in his role as the Trump advisor and also a federal contractor. He's done two things of late that have raised some eyebrows. One is that he's being invited by the Federal Railroad Administration to consult on the Frederick Douglass Tunnel project, because he's got this company called the Boring Company, which bores tunnels, basically. And now he's giving himself a contract there, potentially to help consult on that project. That's a big $8.5 billion project that they're building there. This is obvious that he keeps doing this time and time again. And the other thing
Well,
that's also happened is in the FCC is now considering, the Federal Communications Commission is considering taking away the bandwidth or the satellite bandwidth of EcoStar and giving it to Starlink, because Musk is saying that basically EcoStar is not using its bandwidth correctly. So two cases just in the last few days where you've got him again just using his power to benefit himself, his companies, and to insert himself into every aspect of the government.
and now he's in Saudi Arabia, and Qatar lining up more contracts. No, and look again. This is welcome to Russia. This is what it is. This is how, for people who really didn't understand how Russia operates when it comes to the oligarchs. Welcome to Russia. This is
Mhm.
how it is, and people get lucrative contracts. They carry out, tasks for the state, and then the state rewards them by basically, giving them contracts. And this is what he's doing. And again, this is time and time again, the media carried on that he's exiting and, and painted his whole thing. It's temporary exit. He's not temporary. Maybe his face exited, but all his minions, who are embedded criminal hackers, are still in every single
Mm.
agency. They have stolen all our data. He continues to get every single contract and use, agencies, weaponize agencies to intimidate other companies in order so these contracts get rerouted to him.
Mm.
And this has happened. I mean, every day I document this. At least 3 times a week, I see another contract that Musk is, pulling towards himself. And then on top of it, I mean, if you wanna find this was on the weekend tracker, Trump is using tariff talks and intimidating countries, basically that they need to use Elon's product, Starlink.
Yeah,
I
saw that.
mean, this is this
Not going to happen.
whole thing is so absurd, and what like infuriates me is that there's no outrage over it, that it's being normalized. And why are we normalizing this? I mean, if people here say how Russia's system runs is corrupt and horrific and, and they have the worst to say about it. Why is it that not everyone sees clearly what is happening here? This is the same thing. You have a man who bought himself a White House seat for 60 million,
Mhm.
bought himself the White House seat, is gutting, Meals on Wheels what is it, Head Start program, and gutting all the
Yeah.
social safety net programs for Americans, purging the federal workforce, and at the same time ending investigations. 48 investigations he ended. Why? Because he fired the people. I mean, that's
Yeah.
incredible. And then pulling all these contracts to him. And we're not even going to talk about what's happening with the insider trading, because clearly he gets, information prior to when it's publicly released and what happens with the markets. So the whole thing is absurd. And there really needs to be more outrage over this because
Now, where is the outrage? You pointed out that some of the people on the messaging here are saying, where is the outrage? It doesn't seem like it's going to be there. Like, I mean, it seems like people are either scared or they're sort of numbed into a sense of it's not like the sky's falling yet, so we don't have to do anything. But of course, that's the way this whole thing is designed. It's designed to look like the sky isn't falling yet until the sky falls when it's too late to do anything about it. So, um, you know, how do you combat that when there's not a lot of outrage about something like this, which is so clearly outrageous, as is the stuff that's Donald Trump's crypto holdings with his family. I mean, this is just lunacy. This man is making billions of dollars and continuously. The thing about those crypto things, it doesn't end at the end of the term. It's not a fixed amount. It continues for eternity. Every time someone makes a crypto exchange, they'll be getting money for it, the Trump family. I mean, this is corruption that's so naked and gross.
It's so outrageous, and then adding the 400 million-dollar freaking flying Trump tower. I
Yeah.
mean, the whole thing is just so disgusting, and really, people need to push back because I keep saying during the first term, Trump, kind of he did the same things on a
Mm.
smaller scale, but he actually attempted to cover some of it. Now he feels so emboldened that he's like, screw
Right.
you. Yes, I am going to suspend habeas corpus. What are you going to do about it? Yes, I want a $400 million jet from Qatar, while
Yeah.
I pretend to be combating anti Semitism here,
Hmm.
failing to explain. And he himself in 2017 said, that Qatar was the financier and provided
Of course.
logistics to Hamas, to Hezbollah. They've been providing, logistics to the Houthis. So they support terrorist organizations. And here, he himself said this, and now fast forward, he feels so emboldened, he doesn't need to hide it. He could just do whatever he wants. And we really need to push back because, if he was, I mean, it would be disgusting enough if he was stealing all this money and making all this money using the presidency, but he's doing it at the expense of grandma and grandpa and at the
Mhm.
expense of children. I mean, as we see all these programs being gutted, we see CDC, we don't have bird flu response people. We don't have various pandemic response people. You see the tracker every
Mhm.
day.
Mhm.
They're dismantling another agency. Him and Musk are stealing money for themselves. I mean, it's disgusting, and we really need to push back about it
Yeah.
because you're right. The sky doesn't fall overnight. One day you wake up, and so many things have happened that you realize that's it. The
Yeah.
sky's not there anymore.
The thing that they keep doing is they keep like putting out press releases or making public statements on Truth Social to declaring what they're doing. Just because they're doing that doesn't make it legal. Just because they're being transparent or so-called transparent about it, or they're telling you that they're doing it, does not make it legal. It's still a very illegal, corrupt act that they're doing. And it is money that's coming directly out of the taxpayers' funds and out of the taxpayers' budget. So one hopes that people are going to be more outraged. I think there's just a lot of chill in the air around protests and around fear, around general speaking out. But I think if it's still happening, the military parade on June the 14th will be an interesting day because there'll be protests planned that same day. So we'll see what happens if we can get a lot of people out for then.
Yeah, because every dictator needs, a military parade.
Got to fit the role.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
We took a little longer than normal, but thanks very much, Olga Lautman from the Trump Tyranny Tracker. Try say that fast a few times. Good luck. We'll be back tomorrow and every day between at 2 o'clock, giving you, well, every Monday to Friday, giving you a update on everything that's going on in terms of authoritarian creep. My name is Zev Shalev. You can find my blog at narrative.org, narrativ.org. And you can find Olga Lautman at the Trump Tyranny Tracker. Have a good day, Olga. Good to see you.
Bye.
Bye.
You too. Bye.